Welcome to the Sideline Report. I'm Marvin Jackson, and I am joined by Lou Holder, Donna Hopkins, and special guest for the first time on the Sideline Report, JP Finlay of NBC Sports. Thanks for joining us.
Happy to. Thank you for having me.
Yeah.
I didn't think Lou would ever let me come on.
Well, it's glad to have everybody here. First show of the season, and we're going to talk a little bit about the preseason and the training camp. So let's get right to it, and we're going to go to JP first. Give us your impression of this season's training camp.
Yeah, Marv, I think it's been a really up-tempo set of practices. I think the physicality's been there largely. I think the preseason games have been okay. You would like to see a little bit more from the starting offense, but I think the defenses look great. I think Chase Young has looked great. I think where we know their bread's going to be buttered on that defensive side of the ball looks really encouraging and looks like they could be better. I think with the offense, I think folks need to have realistic expectations for where they've been and perhaps where they can get to. This offense has been dreadful. They're bottom 5 in the league the last few years. So a sizable jump for them is getting into the top 20 in the league. And I think folks got to remember that this isn't going to be the greatest show on turf. Patrick Mahomes ain't coming through that door. So if they can start putting up 24, 27, 30 points a game, they can start – if Fitzpatrick can give them consistent 300-yard passing games, in the last 7 games of the 2020 season, including the wild card loss, they didn't have a 300-yard passing game. So I think there needs to be some realization of where the bar needs to go. I think Ron Rivera does a really good job of demanding pace and tempo and tone at his practices. And you see that when they're in pads, you see that when they're in shells. There is accountability and there is a focus on detail. And I think that was lacking before. And I think they're poised to have a season of growth. What exactly that means, I don't know. That's part of the fun. We're all going to watch it.
Yeah, I like what you said about the detail. I see that when I'm out there. So much detail that I did not see before.
Totally.
Donna?
Coach is getting into minute stuff, too. Sorry, Donna.
No, I'm with JP. It's order out there now as far as how practices are ran now. And you can see the discipline as far as the team overall. Now, through training camps, OTAs, and even through the preseason games, I haven't seen enough to make me feel like, oh, wow, this team is going to be solid this year. I mean, from the quarterback position, I had question marks going into the season with the quarterback situation. And after 2 preseason games, I'm more concerned, even more so now. And even in training camp, going up against one of the best defensive fronts, it told you a lot about the offensive line and the offense overall. Yes, they have upgraded in some positions. They've got more speed at the wide receiver position. And that's one that you look at and you're like, oh, wow, you know what? They got it right there because it's so much competition as far as the wide receiver position. The running backs are pretty solid also with Antonio Gibson. He's looked pretty good and he's going to get better after being out last season. McKissick, Patterson has been one of the highlights this preseason already. And it shows you that hunger that he has not being drafted, that he wants to make this team. So the offensive side of the ball concerns me more than anything. Defense, I think they'll be okay, but the linebacker position is one that I'm concerned a little bit about there too. But overall, I see this defense being on the field a lot more this year than last year.
All right. What about the quarterback situation?
Well, that's one I told you that concerned me coming in. As Ron Fitzpatrick, he's the journeyman around the NFL, and they brought him in, and then you've got Heineke behind him, and then Kyle Allen. So when you look at that group, hasn't been one, JP, and I'm going to throw this out to everybody that's been lighting my fire, that I don't know. I'm kind of like torn overall. I don't know if anybody has ran away with saying, oh, this is your starter for week 1. Major concern for me right there at quarterback position.
Yeah, let's hear what JP has to say there.
Donna, most of what you said is fair, I think. I don't think there's any chance the defense is on the field more this year than they were last year. If you just go back and run the numbers, they were abysmal offensively last year. Some of that was having less weapons. I think the overhaul to wide receiver position, like you mentioned, will help them a lot. They broke camp last year with 4 out of 6 wideouts being undrafted guys. There are great undrafted stories every year, but you never want that concentration at one position, let alone a skill position. So I think I hear your restraints on being excited about this offense. I really do. And Ryan Fitzpatrick is a journeyman. He's on his 9th team. He's never been in a playoff game. Like, I understand all of that. I think he's going to be better than what they had last year. I look at yards per attempt a lot. Is the guy going downfield? Is he giving his players a chance to make plays? Because I think they have Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel, Logan Thomas. I think these guys can make plays. I think Fitz will give them far more chances than we saw with Alex and we saw with Dwayne. Alex was able to come in and manufacture some wins. The defense played really well. Fitz is going to turn it over more, but I think he might actually win some games for this team as well. If you believe in the analytics suggest his last 2 seasons are the best football he's played. He'll tell you that. He said it. Donna and I have been in the press conferences when he said it repeatedly. I think he's in a really good situation. That said, I reiterate, I'm not expecting Joe Theismann and Art Monk and Gary Clark and John Riggins. Like, I think it's all about tempering expectations, but if the defense can deliver on their promise, and the defense is going to be challenged at a much higher rate than they were last year. If you go through their win streak late in the year to seal the NFC East, they beat Ben DiNucci, Nick Mullins, a very beat up Ben Roethlisberger on 4 days rest, Jalen Hurts, and Nate Sudfeld. I'm not even sure they would have beat Hurts until they pulled him for Sudfeld. So the defense is going to face a very different set of challenges. They're going to have to be up to those. I think they can, and I think they will. But I'm not completely convinced. I'm not as worried about the preseason offensive results as others. How about this scenario? If I told you week 1 that Ryan Fitzpatrick was, I hope my math's right, 13 of 21 for 156 yards with no touchdowns but no interceptions, and the Washington football team had put up 6 points. So they had scored 6 at halftime of the first game, no picks, no TDs, and 150 yards. How would you feel about that?
Is that something that would interest you?
I'm saying,
I would say that they win the ball game.
okay, that's what he's done so far in the preseason. He's played a little less than 2 quarters, and those are his stats. So I think it's easy to look at each game in a vacuum and be like, oh man, Fitz didn't get a touchdown. Oh, he didn't get a touchdown again. But try to project that over a body of work, over 1 game, over 4 games, over 17 games. We all got to get used to that. And I think it starts to look a little bit better rather than in that vacuum. Oh my gosh, he missed Logan Thomas. Oh my gosh, he missed Adam Humphries. And the sky is falling.
We got a couple minutes, and
So let me jump in. Let me jump in. No, Marvin, let me jump in.
Yeah.
Let me jump in. I got a lot to say. So let me jump in. So first of all, I think that the story of this training camp and the story of the season, we all know that Ron Rivera has brought the stability and the change of culture that was promised. We just knew that, right? That where the story is going to be told is Del Rio and Turner, right? How creative are they going to be as coordinators is going to be the actual reasoning here on whether they're going to, Fitzpatrick is going to be put in the right position to make plays. They have to be very exotic with some of their packages. Again, they have the players. The depth is there. Right? That's one thing that we know covering this team, JP and Donna, that the depth has not always been there, right? There is depth everywhere on this team, right? Now, they're not all first-round picks, but hey, look, that doesn't mean anything because look what happened when we had a first-round pick in Dwayne Haskins. You know, you need somebody who's going to be able to bring that out of the players. So I'm looking very, very closely at the second year with Scott Turner and the second year with Del Rio to see what's going to happen as far as creativity with offense and defense. Now, JP, since I got here in 2002 with Patrick Ramsey, who had the nerve to hold out his first year, right? All the way through John Beck and all the way through all the quarterbacks, this team has not been able to get that crucial position right. We all know that the people that are on the roster right now, they are not Ron Rivera's people, right? He is stopgapping and he is plugging holes until he gets that franchise quarterback, right? Or a person that he can grow with. So again, this is not going to be a microwave situation. This is going to be a crock pot thing. I mean, our starting quarterback is in Pittsburgh now. He should have been here, but he's in Pittsburgh now as a third string right now. That should have been our starting quarterback. So now we have to do all of this catching up and moving around. So again, I'm not expecting much. This team was 7-9. This team was 7-9, and the division has gotten better. So I think we all need to temper expectations and think that, this team is not going to be, 11, 12 wins. I mean, they are who we think they are, but I think those coordinators can actually steal some games, just like you said Fitzpatrick could. I think these coordinators in the right situations, JP, can win this team some games.
I like Jack a lot. If you go back and look, I think there was some real resistance early in the 2020 season, especially the defensive front that was so used to that 3-4 system that it took them a little while to accept and then figure out how Jack wants them to play. If you look at the second half of the year, now granted there were some bad quarterbacks, but the numbers are really, really good. I think you'll continue to see that. I have faith in Scott Turner. I think he's a creative mind. I think that will work out. But Lou, you're totally right. I mean, we'll see what happens. I think by next April, there is some new big name veteran quarterback leading the Washington football team. My eye is on Matt Ryan, who Atlanta's about to be in a rebuild, and eventually they'll get out of that sweepstakes. Everybody talks about Aaron Rodgers. I think he wants to go to the West Coast, but there's going to be options. And I think they swing big next offseason.
All right. Well, thanks so much for being with us and giving us your impression and your take on this team as they go into another season.
Happy to.
Yeah, we appreciate you being here.